Hey everyone, hope you're all doing swimmingly well. Thank you very much for tuning into today's video, I really appreciate it. If you haven't already, please make sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon, drop a comment, all that good stuff that really helps out the channel, I'd really appreciate it. But enough with the shameless self-promotion and let's get into the main topic for the video, eh? What we are going to do today as well is, as we talk, I'm just going to walk around and show you guys the fish and the tanks and everything, so you have something a little bit more interesting to look at, and then I'll talk over it, give you guys a bit of a full sensory package, if you will. So today's video is going to be about this question that we kind of started talking about yesterday, but I think it's something that I wanted to expand on a little bit more, and that is a contention we often have, particularly in the freshwater side of the hobby, is it better to have more tanks or put more into one tank or like a couple tanks or something like that? So oftentimes you'll see like in, forums or on Facebook or whatever social media platform you'd like, you see a lot of times people are thinking, oh yeah, you've got 30 tanks, that's so cool. Well, I wish I could have more tanks. I want more. I want more. And I think that's great. I think that's something that, if that is what brings value to you and what you want to do, then of course do that. But the flip side to that is, if you have, say, one, two, like a handful of tanks rather than like a big amount, and putting more effort into those smaller amount of tanks, if that makes sense. So like imagine you have, I don't know, 100, we'll call them effort points, like 100 effort points available to you, right? Or resource points or whatever, like be it time, money, space, whatever. Is it better to, say, have 100 different tanks and put one effort point into all of them? Or would it be better to have, say, 3 tanks and put 33 1/3 effort points into each one? I don't know what the answer is, but I think it's something worth thinking about. And I think there's definitely benefits and, pros and cons. I don't know pros and cons is the way to describe it. There's definitely pros and cons to each sort of method or way of approaching your hobby. For example, the effort points getting spread out like one across each, like it is getting framed in the way I'm describing it as a bad thing, but then that means, like, if you have 100 tanks, maybe you really want to breed, and so you can have just a bunch of bare tanks with, little pairs of angels or something in it, then that's fine. And if you really enjoy that, that's awesome. And then you can also have fish that are not going to get along, like, I want to keep discus, but I also want to keep African cichlids, but I also want to keep some Oscars, but I also want to keep some, a super high-tech planted tank. I want to keep guppies, all this. Doing that would allow you much more sort of scope to your hobby, I guess. And so that's why I think it's really popular for especially those who are sort of not new to the hobby, but like ramping up, if you will. So like for someone who's been in the hobby for like a couple years or something, it's really common to just add and add and add until you end up with like 20 or 30 tanks. And then on the flip side of that, you can often find people who's like, oh yeah, I've been keeping fish for 40 years and it's like my favorite thing, but I just have one big main display tank, and then I have 3 littler tanks, like one I've got something breeding, one I've got, something that's just got beaten up and it's in the hospital, and then one I'm trying an experiment with this different kind of plant that's not something I've experienced before and given that a go. And each of those tanks has more resource, and resource is referring to like time, money, effort, space, all this kind of thing, mental capacity, all that. And they're kind of like different ways of approaching the same sort of situation, I guess. And it's one of those ones where I don't think there is a right answer. but I think it is worth thinking about. I've kind of had a bit of a I had a bit of a reckoning with myself a while ago where it was like, maybe I don't want to just do as many tanks as possible. Maybe I want to do some more tanks and invest some more money or time and have the ones I do have be much more like nicer and overall better tanks with more sort of in them. Just because that's kind of where I was wanting to go. I think the main thing with having lots of tanks is that there is heaps of different, like, you can have more variety and scope a lot easier. But what happens is, like, because particularly for like the hobbyist I was mentioning before, like the newer hobbyist, is you don't necessarily know what you like. It's one of those ones where you have to sort of play with everything, or like have a look at everything and have a go with everything to kind of find out what your thing is. And like for me, like I've done community fish, I've done plants, I've done Oscars and stuff. And for me, I know that I like African cichlids in general, and I like big Americans like your Oscars and that. I'm not personally, like, I do like them, and one of the good things is I'm so grateful for my job is because I can still play with community fish and with plants and stuff in the shop, but it's not something I have to necessarily, I don't necessarily have that opportunity cost where I have, being my job, I have time and money to be able to do both. But that's obviously not the same for everyone. But if it was something I was looking at just with like my personal sort of hobby, I know that I would much prefer to just do like a couple African tanks, couple American tanks, and like focus on that and then build it off that. Which is good because I know that's what I like and what I enjoy. And I think it's something that would prevent a lot of you see it a lot of the time, like talking to people and like watching YouTube videos and stuff. This fish keeper burnout, that's quite a common sort of sentiment, where you kind of overextend yourself and it's like, oh, keeping these 18 tanks is too much for me, I don't have time, I'm missing out with my family, all this kind of thing. And you burn out and then the hobby's no longer fun, like at all, like your hobby goes to a zero. And that doesn't have to be the case. I think it's one of those ones where it's like, maybe you're the kind of person who just wants to really focus on your one tank or two tanks or whatever, and invest all your time and money and effort into it and have it be like the most awesome badass tank in the entire world. And then maybe you are a person who's like, I just want more, I want to have a variety, or I want to, like maybe I want to be an African cichlid breeder, but I want to breed every peacock, every hat, and a few tanky Then obviously you're going to need more space than someone who's like, I just really want to breed OB peacocks, but that's all I want to do. I want to have a display tank with my cool ones, my cool backup males. I want to have my, breeding tanks where I put them to breed, and I want to have my fry tanks. This is just completely different ways of going about the same question, and I think it's something that we don't think about. I think it's always more. This is cool, but you should have this, you should do that, you should add this, you should add that. And I think it does a bit of a disservice to one of the best parts about the hobby, and that is every single person, everyone, can do something different and do something the way they want to do it. If you want to just keep a bunch of plants, you can do that, and if that's what makes you happy, that's the most important thing. So I think it really is something that I'd really like people to think about. I think there's pros and cons to both sides, of course. You can't have it both ways. No one can. It's impossible. But I think it's important that people don't just get sort of stumble down the just more and more path without kind of considering the opportunity cost of that decision. So yeah, I mean, I think it's really important. I think it's a really interesting sort of dilemma we as fish keepers face. I would really like to know if this is something that maybe you've thought about, maybe this is something that you've had an issue with, maybe you've made your decision to go one way or the other, and I'd really like to hear, what you guys think about this one. I think this is a really important one. I would really love to even just raise more awareness in the hobby, for that there is enough, like, that you don't have to always do it the same way. And then once that's out there, people can make their own decisions, which I don't really think. I think we kind of forget in the hobby it's always more instead of how cool can it be. And maybe that's because everyone wants it that way and I'm wrong, and that's fine, but I think we should talk about it at least. So yeah, that's kind of all I had for today's video. If you haven't already, please make sure to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. I really appreciate the support. The YouTube is taking off. I'm really enjoying making these daily videos. I'm having so much fun. If there's anything in particular you'd like me to cover, please feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I'm more than happy to just do what I'm doing, just come up with ideas myself and do it. But I mean, I do this for you guys, so I'd love to hear what you guys think about what you'd like to see. But yes, thank you very much. I love you all so much. Keep playing with your fish tanks, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!